Welcome to the Aquarium Dilemmas podcast. I'm your host, Science Gal Aquatics. I'm Carrie, and this is my co-host,
Jesse. Welcome to another episode.
Yes, we're excited to talk about today's topic.
Feeding your fish, specifically overfeeding.
Yes, I think that I have probably had more fish pass away because of overfeeding than most problems, especially in the beginning, because I'm really guilty of overfeeding. Not so much anymore, but in the beginning, every time I'd walk past the tank, I would feed them.
Yes, correct. And it's very easy to get caught into that habit. Mm-hmm. Number one, because you're excited.
Yes, especially in the beginning.
Number two, because you're like, oh, every time I come over to the tank, they come up to the glass. They got to be hungry. Mm-hmm. They're not. They're just begging.
Yeah, I've had some fish over the years really learn the tricks to, just begging. And I would fall into it every time I'd feed them. And you don't have to do that.
Well, fish, if they were in their natural environment, wouldn't eat every day. Or they, depending on the fish, would graze on things all day long. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't actually have a meal as what we consider giving them a meal by sprinkling stuff in the tank.
Yeah, they don't have fish flakes on demand in the wild.
Yeah, they have to eat what they can find, the microorganisms or the bugs if you got the big predatory type fish.
And each fish requires its own diet. So some, yes, require more feedings, a more specific diet than others. But the fish that I generally keep are guppies, especially in the beginning of my fish keeping. They were pretty much all guppies. And I would feed them sporadically. So I wouldn't feed them every day. Let's say I would feed them once a week, but when I did feed them, I would feed them a literal handful of food. And then it kind of morphed into, over the years, just feeding them every time I walked past the tank. I felt like I wasn't feeding them as much, but I was definitely overfeeding. And then there's been times too where I wanted to get the kids involved. And they were really excited, and I had my back turned just a little bit, and like a whole bottle of fish food went in the tank. So there's...
Or an animal.
Yeah, or the cat. The cat and the fish food bottles, I tell you. But there's a lot of different reasons why someone would overfeed. Either... I think most of the time it's not on purpose. You think you're doing good. You think you're just giving them a good diet. But overfeeding your tank can cause a lot of problems to the fish and the tank itself.
Well, I mean, first off, yes, you're wanting your fish to be happy, so you're wanting to feed the fish, keep the fish healthy. And that is...
Especially when I first get them in.
That is 100% understandable. You're wanting to be a great aquarist, a great fish hobbyist. You're wanting to do everything right. And on the feeding topic, for most species of fish, there's some out there that require a little more large diet, but for most, less is more.
Yeah, there's a big difference between our silver arowana upstairs and the guppies down here in the fish room. Even just
or even in a Mica splendid.
Yeah, and each one, like, over the years, I've realized that not every fish can live on fish flakes either. So there's always exceptions, but the main gist of it, I think, is if you will do better if you just start off with a very small amount. And if they need to be fed more often, feed them a little bit more often, but always start off with a little bit.
The general accepted rule is to give them what they can eat in under 5 minutes.
Well, and even for some of my fish, I go for 30 seconds. I don't let them eat but that still comes down to knowing your fish.
Yes, correct, and the species of fish. But the general accepted rule is if you sprinkle flakes in the tank and in under 4 minutes they clean it up, that's probably the right amount, and there's no waste.
You don't want food going down to the bottom of your tank and settling into your substrate, and then you don't see it, or if you don't have something that might help you clean it up, but you just don't want food that you don't know about molding in your tank.
Well, that's a very good thing to talk about right there. There's so many reasons why not to overfeed. One, believe it or not, it ultimately leads to stressing your fish out.
Yes. Because with like the goldfish and the koi that we have outside, they will eat nonstop until they will physically eat themselves to death. Like they'll just eat and eat and eat, and you have to cut them off.
Yep, and that's a great point. Little fun fact for everyone listening: goldfish and koi do not have stomachs.
Oh.
As we think of a stomach as a human, goldfish and koi, all of their digestion takes place inside their intestines. So they have certain bacteria in their intestines throughout that eat the food. That's why they like to graze all day. So they don't need a massive feeding. Is actually very harmful to them.
And like with the guppies too, they will just beg and beg. The puffers, when I had puffers, they would they would look so cute coming up to the front of the tank and just wanting snails, and it was so cute, but I had to learn to not do that, because they're, like you said, it can be detrimental to your fish just to constantly feed them whenever they want. And like you said earlier, in nature, they don't eat every time the hour hits.
Well, and as far as like, that's not good for goldfish and koi to like overload feed them because their digestion can't handle it. You can also have fatty liver problems. There's African cichlids and rainbow fish that if you overfeed them, then they can develop a fatty liver that will ultimately end up killing them.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's a lot of diseases and things and health problems for your fish that could happen by you overfeeding, even though you think, well, they always want to eat and they're happy. Or I think they're happy anyway.
Yeah, and another big thing I was super guilty of, not just in the beginning of my fish keeping, but probably far longer than I should admit, but don't rely on a cleanup crew too, just because, I toss some extra food in there, my cleanup crew will take care of it. That's not necessarily always the case. And sometimes the cleanup crew, like plecos, they need more than just algae and the leftover flakes at the bottom. So you do have to know your fish. It's very important to know, especially
your fish, and
your
feed
fish.
them a variety of diet. If you got plecos in with guppies, you're going to give the guppies a certain amount of flake food, but you're going to go ahead and give the plecos a little something different for them.
Yeah.
Especially when you have a community tank of fish, or you're new to it and you're like, oh, this fish and this fish together look great. That's awesome. But they probably both have a little bit different diet. One might like pellets. One might require flakes.
And that was one of the reasons why I would feed so much at a time, too. When I would have a community tank, I would toss in a lot of food and be like, well, there's some slow eaters, there's some fast eaters, there's some bottom feeders. So I'll just throw a whole bunch of food in there and everybody can eat at their own pace. But that's, like you said, everybody might need something a little bit different. And just because you're throwing in a ton of food in there doesn't mean that everybody's eating equally too.
And a little side note on the
if that makes any sense.
A little side note on the feeding of fish. You got to also think, what if your fish are kind of a little bit more nocturnal? Like a lot of plecos, they love to hide and they really won't come out until the lights are off. So if you have some of the species of plecos, catfish, things like that, you might put their food in the tank right before you go to bed, and turn the lights off, all of their wonderful senses, they will find that food, and you will be pleasantly surprised the next morning. You'll be like, where'd all that go? Well, they're going to get to it. So you can, there's several species specific things you can do, and their diet is different than if you have something else in the tank that you can feed during the day.
It's just good overall to just know your fish. Know some fish require more mosquito larvae in their diet. Some can be okay with flake food and more like vegetable type protein. But it's just important just to know your fish. Do your research and know.
And research your fish food. See what is actually in it.
Yes, because a high quality food is very important. You don't want to just go get, and sometimes it might work too, just go get the cheapest thing, but it's really important to make sure that they're getting all the proteins that they need in their diet and switch it up. Don't just feed, fish flakes are great, but it's a staple of my fish room, but it's good to mix in. I like bug bites and I like the pellets. I like frozen food as a treat. I'll give them frozen brine shrimp like once a week just to kind of switch it up and make sure that I'm trying to get all of their needs met in their diet.
Well, and you're trying to mimic nature. They're not going to eat the same thing
but it's
every
also,
day.
Like we said, it's really important. I don't just throw in a whole bunch of food. Now, even when I have a wide variety of food, I still make sure that it gets all eaten up when I'm feeding. And getting to know your fish during one of my favorite times is feeding and water changing. That's when I really like to look at my fish and kind of just get to know their personalities. And if something doesn't get eaten up, then remove it the best you can, because it does do a lot of harm to your water quality if you leave a bunch of food just rotting and decaying at the bottom of your tank.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Whether it's by accident or you notice that you fed a bunch and the fish didn't eat it. What's going to happen is that food's going to fall down to the bottom. And it's going to rot. It's going to decompose. And when it does, it is going to start altering your water. And it can lead to a ton of problems. Because it's going to decompose. It's going to take oxygen out of the water. It's going to put in more CO2 into the water. It's going to put more ammonia in the water.
Well, when that food breaks down, you're going to have a spike.
Yep, and especially
it might
if it's a lot.
Yes, but even on the small side, let's say there's a pellet or a veggie round or something that you left behind and it's starting to decay. That decay process requires oxygen, and because it requires oxygen, it's going to have a byproduct of the CO2.
Yes.
But also, it's going to break down and you're going to have an ammonia spike, whether big or small. But even if it's small, a bunch of overfeeding, let's say you're feeding too much every day, and you're not water changing every day, that little bit can add up.
On a scale, if we had a bar graph,
and
it
I
would
think
be a
this
drastic climb up a very
and like
dangerous...
you said, there's a numerous reasons and things that can happen because of overfeeding. But I think this right here for new fish keepers is one of the biggest reasons why they lose fish when it comes to just overfeeding.
Yeah.
Is because of whether it's a whole lot or a little bit gets left behind over time, that's going to break down.
Yes,
and
as it builds up.
And your water quality is that's like really important in fish keeping. And you don't want something as feeding your fish in that fun time to be the reason why your water's getting polluted.
Yeah, you're definitely throwing a whole nother factor into the cycling of your water. And you're going to notice overfeeding. Your water will start to get cloudy. You could have algae blooms.
Oh, well, if that's going to happen. Your fish can, with those spikes, you might see some fin rot over time. Snails, if you're overfeeding. And I like snails. Snails can be very helpful, but there's a point with algae too that I enjoy algae. I've learned to embrace it. I don't mind it. It's helpful to a fish keeper, but there's a point where even that's too much. And if you're overfeeding and you're having these algae blooms that are just like crazy, or a bunch of snails all of a sudden just reproducing out of nowhere and you can't even see through your glass because of all the pet snails, you're probably overfeeding. Yep. And cut back a little bit. And it's okay to take, let's say, if you want to feed, it's what you want to do. You want to feed your fish every day. Feed them a tiny bit in the morning, or maybe in a tiny bit at night, and just a tiny bit, but take a day off. You don't have to feed them 7 days a week. Just try 6. Just take that little bit of time off.
Oh, I mean, on top of that, you're super overfeeding. That's hard on your filters. Your filter trying to pick up all that extra waste that's getting put into the water.
Yeah, and that cloudy water, if you're getting a bunch of cloudy water and you are feeding a lot, that's good. It's an organic matter that's breaking down.
Yep.
That's going to contribute to your cloudy water issues.
Yes. And if you're having a tank that doesn't have a lot of substrate, a lot of plants, anything else that can help absorb any of this, you're going to run into the mold. I mean, it'll be cloudy water, it'll be algae. You can get mold.
Planaria. I don't have a huge, I'm sure I've had it, and I believe it's like a flatworm of some sort.
It's a flatworm.
I'm sure I've had it in the past and didn't notice it, especially when I was just dumping piles of like fish food into my tank. But that can be a problem too if you notice a lot of planaria. And I haven't, that I know of, knock on wood, I don't feel like I have any problems with that. But that doesn't mean I didn't in the past and just didn't know it. But that can be an issue. And when I tell you, I was overfeeding. I was overfeeding. And it was at one point I would feed them just sporadic, just once or twice a week, but it was a lot. And then I went to just feeding them once every day, but still a lot. And I was relying on my plecos to do all the cleanup work. And just don't do that, because I wasn't feeding the plecos correctly. I was using them strictly as algae control and cleaning up all the crazy amount of fish flakes that I was using, and then I was complaining why I could only get them to grow out for so long and then they would just pass away. So overfeeding is something that
you were giving them the absolute worst diet known to man.
Yeah, and then I was just feeling so bad, and I feel like there's a couple periods where I did want to quit, because I just did not. I thought I was doing everything I could, and I'm glad that I've matured and discovered, like, reading and looking into things, and a lot of things with fish keeping. You can read all day long. You can look into it all day long. You can take tips from people all day long. But until you get to know your tank and the fish that you're going to keep, you can know, it's good to know all the rules and the fundamentals of why we do this or why we shouldn't do it. But each tank is individual.
Well, but the fundamentals remain the key.
And there's always exceptions. Like, I have never kept discus, but I know that from what I've heard, they require like a whole bunch of feedings, 6 feedings a day, a little bit at a time. And certain fry, when you have fry for the first time, they need to be fed a lot of times through the day. But again, it's a little bit until you notice them. They've got enough. They've got a couple bites in, and then come back and feed them again in a couple. You don't have to feed them everything right then, like I thought you had to.
No, it is extremely stressful on the fish.
Yes. I thought I was helping them out, but I was not. And it's important to know, like I really did mean well. I really did. But it's, now that I know what I did wrong, and I'm trying to learn from my mistakes, I do not have the problems I used to. And it's probably saved me a lot of money, because just dumping a whole bunch of fish food in your tank is going to cost you a fortune in fish food. It's going to cost you a fortune in trying to figure out like all the stuff you need, that you might need this to try to clear up that. And then that didn't work. So I'm going to go buy this to do this. When I'm overfeeding, you're going to have to do a ton of water changes. The water bill from the water changes, it saves you a lot of time, energy, and effort just to make sure you're feeding correctly.
Yes. Please
learn from my mistakes and don't do that. It's a really wordy way to just say, get to know your fish and don't overfeed them.
Yes, it's going to save you time in the long run and headache in the long run. You're not going to be siphoning up a bunch of waste from the bottom of your tank.
Yes.
Picking up a bunch of old food, anything else that's decomposing. Your water changes will be, you'll still have to water change, but you're not going to be doing massive water changes.
No.
Your fish are going to be happier, not as stressed. And when the fish isn't stressed, that is when they are the happiest.
Well, I tell you, I had guppies in a 5-gallon tank. And those 5-gallon tanks are always a little bit difficult in the beginning. Anyway, check out the last podcast over why you shouldn't add your fish the first day. And we go over the nitrogen cycle. So those 5-gallon tanks, sometimes for me, were a little hard to get balanced and everything in the beginning. And they dumped, no joke, a huge bottle of fish food. It was flakes in that tank. And just because I water changed, I did a heavy water change, but it took months to get all of that. Because you can't take 100, at least for me, I don't take 100% water out. Even on a heavy-handed water change, it was 50 to 75%. But in a 5-gallon tank,
that's not that much water volume.
Yes. And with, I'm not lying, a huge bottle of fish food that got dumped, it took a long time to get all of that out. There was it just looked like whack. It was just a mess. So just don't do that. It's nice to have the kids involved and take interest to feeding the fish, because it is really fun. But we have learned, yes, trying to teach them. I would teach them to dump just a little bit in the lid and just kind of pinch it in there. And with fry, I would kind of rub it between my fingers, even just to get it as powdery as I can and feed. But the bottom, just a little bit goes a long way. And even with the silver arowana upstairs, we feed him a lot more than the guppies down here in the fish room. We do feed him a lot more, but we have to cut him off because he would eat
to no end.
To eat, including our fingers too. So it's just good to know, be like, he's good. He's ate a lot, but it's hard not to overfeed them, because to me, feeding them, it means they're happy.
Well, and that's your interaction with them. Whereas you also have to just enjoy the fish in the tank and the skate, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's the way I look at it. And back to less is more.
Yes.
That is the ultimate takeaway from feeding your fish. Know your fish. Research your food and the variety of food that you need to feed this fish.
Yeah.
And then less is always more.
Yes. Because I would always, I don't know if justify is the right word to you. I'm not sure about the word. But I would always go to the fish store. I would get the cheapest bottle of fish flakes I could possibly come home and get and feed. And I would overfeed. So I was constantly going to the store to buy new food. But buying a little bit more expensive bottle of fish food that's a much higher quality, now that I'm feeding correctly, it saves me money in the long run, because I'm not constantly rushing out. I'm not constantly having to do water changes like I used to. Granted, I have a lot more live plants to help me out too, but cutting back, knowing that the fish are okay if I just feed them a little bit every other day or a tiny bit every day. If you want to feed them in the morning and in the nighttime, even smaller bits, just start off small and work your way up and make sure that, yes, everybody, try the best you can. Know everybody's getting fed, but know that not everybody might eat in that sitting. Sometimes you might have to feed the guppies a little bit of fish flakes and the shrimp some pellets and just not overdo it.
Exactly. That is a very, very good point.
And again, just don't rely on feeder fish cleanup crews to just clean up your tank and not feed them. Don't do that.
Yes. If your local pet store or big box store tells you, oh, they'll be fine, they'll just eat whatever hits the bottom.
They will, but they need more of it. They need their own diet. They need their own diet.
You have been told a very bad myth and a myth's truth. Mm-hmm. That's why they have their own line of food.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, yeah. Well, is there anything else this is going to be kind of a shorter episode just because it's really important to talk about, but once you know why you don't want to overfeed, and it's a little easier to digest than some of the other the nitrogen cycle.
Because number one, you stress your fish.
Yeah.
Number two, you can change the whole water parameter of your tank in a very drastic way in a short amount of time due to overfeeding.
Yeah, and the one thing we all try to work towards is that perfectly well-established, balanced, beautiful, crystal clear water. And if you're overfeeding your fish, you're just probably not going to get to that very easily. You're constantly going to battle algae.
Yeah.
At least for me.
And if you don't realize it's the problem that you're overfeeding, you're going to try to chase water parameters that you're not going to be able to hit.
It's just don't work against yourself. And it's really hard not to. And sometimes I'm still guilty of overfeeding, but just know you're doing more harm than good. You're not doing your fish any favors by throwing in an extra handful of pellets or flakes or whatever you're feeding at that. You're just not doing them any favors. Make sure they're fed, yes, but don't overfeed them.
Yep. By overfeeding, all you're honestly doing is hurting your fish and causing yourself a laundry list of possible problems.
Yes, that I've been through. And I'm glad, I tell you, I'm glad I learned my lesson and I learned from my mistakes. But thinking back on all the things that I've done, sometimes I wonder why. And overfeeding was definitely something that I am guilty of. Yes. Well, is there anything else you want to mention or say or add to the topic?
Know your fish. More is less.
Yes.
And you will have a wonderful tank.
Yes. You don't want those unnecessary spikes. You want good water quality for your fish, and don't overfeed. Little bits. A little more often if you must, but just remember, little bits. But thank you so much for tuning in and listening to us discuss this topic of why it's just a bad idea to overfeed your fish. You just don't want to do it, even though it's so simple. And all of us are guilty of it from time to time, but don't do that. But if you would like to watch this episode, you can always join the memberships over at Science Gal Aquatics on YouTube. But until next time, thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye.